Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today we're talking about Disney, specifically Disney dealing with something going on with Notre Dame in France, which is actually a very positive thing to talk about, and also a couple of things that seem to be negative, but also seem to really be up in the air because we really don't know, much like Kathleen Kennedy, really where everything is going to be going with it. So as we see here, Star Wars, Lucasfilm developing a Knights of the Old Republic project, but then the subheading to me is more important. This is obviously clickbait because it says Lucasfilm is working on something related to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series, maybe, and it says in the first actual paragraph that they might be doing it. This all stems from an MTV interview that Kathleen Kennedy has done. Obviously, Kathleen Kennedy went underground as soon as Solo: A Star Wars Story was shown to be a gigantic flop and did not show herself again until Star Wars Celebration this year, and even then made her presence very, very limited, which I think is a good thing because if you actually hear her in interviews, she obviously has no idea what she's talking about. And when it comes to Knights of the Old Republic, it seems to be the exact same way. It says, you know, we talk about that all the time, Kennedy said in regards to KOTOR franchise, Knights of the Republic. Yes, we are developing something to look at. Right now, I have no idea where things might fall, but we have to be careful that there is a cadence to Star Wars that doesn't start to feel like too much. Okay, because for some reason you think that 2 movies a year is too much. Again, you said so as much when you said Solo: Star Wars Story flopped because it was just, it was too much content too soon, and, having the 2 films a year just wasn't making any sense and it wasn't working. No, it wasn't working because you, Kathleen Kennedy, as the president of Lucasfilm, had no forward-thinking vision. Now you're talking about a 10-year plan, but obviously you didn't even have a 3, 4, 5-year plan with this current trilogy you're working on right now because you already from the beginning said, I want 3 different directors, I want 3 different perspectives and takes, and yet I want it all to be a part of one cohesive story unit, but each person is going to be given basically almost total autonomy to do whatever it is that they want to do. J.J. Abrams was able to do whatever he wanted to do without Kathleen Kennedy really getting involved. Rian Johnson was able to, again, break canon, break even the canon of J.J. Abrams, and retcon so many things from both the original trilogy and also from J.J.'s, previous film. And now, of course, that has left J.J. in a position of not really having wanted to take on this project, but he was probably offered a crap ton of money. And so now he's basically trying to do fan service so that eventually people will say, oh, well, the first and last film in the franchise were good. Let's just forget about that middle film for a second because obviously it's trash. But it is interesting nonetheless to see that that mentality is still continuing even when it talks about this. This is something that many of us thought would likely be covered maybe by the Game of Thrones people. Obviously, we know that they're doing Old Republic stuff. We don't know exactly what kind of stories they're saying from the Old Republic. We know that the Mandalorian is taking place prior to certain events and is going to be essentially the first independent product that is not having to be based off of any previous character or anything beforehand. Obviously, the Mandalorians have been mentioned for a very long time in Star Wars, even including especially in everything that was covered in the Clone Wars series. However, it's going to be the first live action material that we've gotten that's going to be an original story with original characters, and it's going to be a huge test. And I think that they're smart to make that test happen on their streaming service and not actually in theaters because the question is asked, can they actually do well in theaters anymore? Because this is supposed to be the end of the Skywalker saga. What that means then is that anyone attached to the Skywalkers is not going to be in any future Star Wars content, which I find to be interesting because it is going to be a gamble, seeing that most of the hardcore fans have been grown and raised on the original trilogy or even the prequels trilogy, and we obviously, hold on to those things and hold them in very high esteem, even those terribly written prequel films, because at least there's a cohesive story that ties into everything else. Right now, there's a sequel trilogy that doesn't really tie into anything, or at least it tries to, but then it also tries to go off and establish new characters, and it tries to do so much that in the end, what it does is it ends up just kind of putting down all the original characters, and many people aren't really liking it. To have Kathleen Kennedy come out saying, oh yeah, we might do something with Knights of the Old Republic, we don't really know yet, we might try to create something to look at, but, we don't want to do too much. The thing with Star Wars is that there is no such thing as too much. You could probably release, keep in mind with TV series, you could release a new episode of a show every single week for an entire year, and it would do well if it was a good show. If it was able to build the trust of an audience and the audience were invested in the story. The reason why films don't do as well, or why films are a lot harder to have that kind of metric, is because films take longer to film. Films obviously cost a lot more money in the end, and there's usually a lot more parts in play because you're having to work out deals with the various theater chains, you're having to work out deals with different producers and all these other just crazy things that cause things and sometimes movies to go into production hell. With the streaming service that they're going to be, launching November 12th of this year, and the fact that they're going to own all the content, it means that they're going to have a lot more control over it, which is why I actually have a lot of high hopes for The Mandalorian, because the people they currently have behind the project with Jon Favreau, you got Dave Filoni involved, also you got Taika Waititi involved. There's a lot of really great names there mentioned, and I think that it's going to lead to a lot of really great things. However, Kathleen Kennedy is still not the person that should be heading this ship. And people can try and say she is, just the figurehead at this point. She's not really having any power because they don't trust her anymore. And to be honest, I wouldn't trust her either. After what she did with Solo, allowing two people to film almost the entirety of a movie and then decide to fire them when it's not what you expected, I'm sorry, but that shows that she obviously was not paying attention and obviously has no idea what she wants. So hearing her say here very clearly, we have no idea. I have no idea. This is, again, using the first person. She says, I have no idea where things might fall. Well, that seems to be consistent with everything you've been doing so far in Star Wars. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea where things may fall. And that's not a good thing. As a producer, if you were just a producer, if you were just a financial backer with maybe very minimal input, I think that that would be a valid thing to say. But the fact that you are the head of Lucasfilm, the fact that you are supposed to be the person leading the charge, similar to how Kevin Feige is leading the charge in the MCU. Kevin Feige is obviously a much more creative mindset and has people around him to help him create a more, creative environment. Now, of course, he might be jumping down the woke train very soon, as I covered this in the video yesterday, where even Joe Russo himself came out and said, yeah, it's going to be a lot more inclusive going forward, where they're going to care more about colors, and they're going to care more about genders, and they care more about all these other external things that don't really have any impact on whether or not they're good at their job or not in front of and behind the camera for the future of the MCU. Now, again, having diversity for the sake of diversity, just having diversity itself and not trying to force it, that's a good thing. No one has a problem. No one had a problem with Finn because he was because he was a black man. No one had a problem with the character of Finn. No one had a problem with Rey because she was a woman. We had a problem with those characters and still do because they're not well fleshed out characters, because they're not compelling characters, and because they were only put there for the sake of saying, oh, look how diverse we are. And that's never a good enough reason to create a character or to put a certain actor in a place because they fit certain quotas that you're trying to set in place. Knights of the Old Republic is going to follow the same fate if they try the same mindset, which seems to be the Kathleen Kennedy mindset. The only thing that she seems to really know is that she wants to expand, as she says, expand the universe. She wants to make more people who are not already Star Wars fans. What she's doing, though, is because she is sacrificing story, because she is sacrificing talent, what she then does is she puts herself into this bottleneck of appealing to these outskirt groups she's trying to reach, but then she also puts her very core fan base at risk. She then throws her core fan base under the bus. And even though many of them might still be in that mindset of saying, oh, Last Jedi wasn't that bad, it's the weakest, but it's not that bad, and they might be more positive when it comes to the future of Star Wars, and I think there's enough, at least at this point with The Mandalorian and Clone Wars Season 7, to have some type of excitement for the future of Star Wars. I think when it comes to the current trilogy, or also the announcement of the Knights of the Old Republic, that it does cause some concern when the creative figurehead of Lucasfilm, the president of Lucasfilm itself, the one who's supposed to have that forward-thinking vision, who's not just a money person, but is also the creative, the head creativity person, I think that is not a good thing. She's the one that delegates. She's the one that says, you do this, you do that. And we need someone up there with a creative mindset. That's why I've said before, Dave Filoni has a creative mind. Would he be a good president? I don't know, because it requires a lot more than just being creative. That's why I said, hey, put up a tandem of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni together. They seem to work well together. They seem to bounce off each other well. Both are creative guys. And if you did that, what you would have is you'd have essentially a power team of being able to make sure everything follows into place. All the people who need to be told what to do are told. And also you would have someone who knows how to tell Star Wars stories to boot. So Knights of the Old Republic, what do you guys think? Are you excited for it? Do you think that's going to be any good? Obviously, I know a lot of people are concerned because they don't want this precious story. And this is a game I've never played. This is part of the EU I have not dove into yet because I'm still stuck on the Thrawn duology at this point. The second book of the Thrawn duology, still need to get through that. But I've read I've had the entire Thrawn trilogy. I've had Outbound Flight and a couple of other things too. And so I know there's a lot of rich history there. And I know that Knights of the Republic is probably no different, where it's just a lot of really cool stories, more Sith-centric stories as well. Before the Rule of Two, you can go back to that time. There's a lot of things. This is a rich galaxy with many stories to tell, with many characters to explain. And that's what's really sad, is that it seems that Lucasfilm, especially run under Kathleen Kennedy, is limiting themselves so much, all because they want to focus more so on diversity in front and behind the camera rather than actually telling good stories. Because as we know, if anyone's ever read the novels or read the comics or played the games, you know that there's a lot of rich material out there that has just remained untapped. You know that they could have made an incredible sequel trilogy to the originals if they had followed just Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. Yes, they would have had to have changed some of the years. Yes, they would have had to make certain changes to make certain characters work. but it would have been a much better story as far as the material goes. Obviously they could have still tried to push their social agendas, but if they chose people that were good for the parts, and Daisy Ridley is not a bad actress. John Boyega is actually a really good actor. Again, I remember seeing him all the way in Attack the Block, and he was fantastic in that film. So I know that a lot of these characters and a lot of the people they're bringing in are talented, but they're being brought in for the wrong reason. What we need right now in Star Wars, what we need right now, especially when it comes to even the future of the MCU, is someone who is not going to allow politics, who's not going to allow identity politics at that, to influence their storytelling ability. Tell great stories. We don't care who is behind the camera or in front of the camera. What most of us care about is it a good story? You can make billions of dollars. You could have made a Black Panther that would have broken $1 billion and still have had a white director or a white writer. You don't need to be able to match up those things to have good movies. Good movies are going to be good if they're well made. Again, there's an objective standard there. Subjectively, that's going to be up to the person. So if you're telling good stories that people actually want to watch and want to see, and you do it well, that's how you're going to succeed. But we've fallen into this trap. Again, when it comes to Lucasfilm, they've fallen into this trap of instead trying to fit these pieces into puzzles that they want to make sure are covered by also allowing the rest of it to fall down behind them. So again, I'm excited the fact that they're going to try and bring in new stories that have not been told in live action form before, but I'm also concerned because at this point in time, Kathleen Kennedy is still the head of Lucasfilm, and she is the one speaking about this, and she is the one saying, I have no idea, and I don't want it to be too much Star Wars. There's no such thing as too much Star Wars. If you were to do even a daily show, if it was a good show, people would still watch it. People are going to watch things if they're good. The whole concept of fatigue has already been blown in the face by the fact for the past 11 years, we've gotten 2, sometimes even 3 Marvel films every single year. And they all do well. Not one of them except for one of the first films that came out, the second official film, and that's even before Disney took over, Incredible Hulk, is the only movie in the MCU canon that even just barely broke even, but still ended up making its money back in its post-theatrical debut on DVD and Blu-ray. And so we know that it's a successful formula. The question is, though, do you allow yourself to tweak the formula, focus on the fans, focus on good storytelling, or do you do what the Kathleen Kennedys have been doing and focus more so on narrative and agenda? And good God, Kevin Feige, if you really are going to go down that path, look at Star Wars. It's a great example. But to end things on a bit of a high note, I do want to, again, give some props where props are due, where Disney has apparently pledged $5 million to the Notre Dame rebuilding effort. For those that don't know, Notre Dame Cathedral in France burned down. As far as we know, there was no attack. It must have, I don't know if there's been, at this point in time, there's not been any official designation as to how the fire started. But the fact is that it destroyed the roof. It destroyed a lot of the things on the inside. Again, the steeple itself collapsed in on itself as well. And so this is a terrible event. So it's really great to see Disney step up and say, obviously they could give more, but the fact that they're even coming out and doing anything at all, especially with the history they have of having, of course, one of my favorite classic animations, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I think it's really cool that they're helping them out in this way. So again, kudos to Disney when we can give kudos to Disney. But as I said, I would love to hear your thoughts on Knights of the Republic. Do you think it's going to be good? Do you think it's going to be woke? Do you think that Kathleen Kennedy has any idea what she's doing? Let me know in the comments below. Also, guys, please check out my affiliate links on Amazon. If you shop at Amazon and you want to help the channel out of it a little bit, go ahead and click on those links. There is, of course, trials where you can get 2 free audiobooks, including audiobooks of the Old Republic stories. And so if you want to get 2 free audiobooks with your trial for Audible, you can click on my link, and I do get a little bit of that. I get a little bit of cheddar honey, but again, does not tell me anything about what you buy or who you are. So again, don't worry about that for privacy's sake. If you use my main link, anything you buy within 24 hours of using my link, I get a small cut of. I don't find out what you buy. I have no information on that. It just helps out the channel. And of course, there's a free Amazon Prime membership also, so you can get access to the incredible library of shows and movies available on Prime, and also can enjoy 2-day free shipping on a multitude of items. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And as always, God bless.